agree more.
We're back for more unpopular opinions, this time at the Hungarian. Had a quality seat down at turn 1, shame the race was a bit of a dud. And thanks to this video sponsor, Head Out, I have got one pair of F1 race tickets to give away. To Monza, in the central grandstand. Plus some pretty substantial ticket discounts for everyone, so stick around. Right, welcome to the Hungarian Grand Prix, everyone. First and foremost, the most important thing of the day, food review. I want to get something like local. That's the plan, some local Hungarian food. Look at these sausages. These sausages look insane. I'm going to have to get one of them, I think. So I didn't go for the sausage in the end. Gyros box, have a look at that. Little bit of heat, little bit of sour cream, little bit of meat, bit of veg hidden underneath, and some steak chips, which I'm looking forward to getting to. Howard Ash, you got this, didn't you? What would you give it out of 10?
It's a 9.
Is that cap, or is that fact? Let's find out. It wasn't cheap, it wasn't too expensive, it's equivalent to about 11 quid, but it's a big portion. This is getting an 8.8 out of 10. Well done, Hungary. More of this, please. Went back to our seats at turn 1, unreal view as you can see. Filmed this on Saturday, so this is some FP3 running. And then in the 2-hour break before qualifying, it was time for your dodgy takes. What's your name and where are you from?
My name's Connor, I'm from Middlesbrough in the United Kingdom.
Hi, I'm Florian, I'm from Dortmund, Germany.
Stephen, I'm from Redborough.
Chris Dunn from Skegness.
I'm Tom and I'm from the Netherlands.
Tom from, what a name!
I am Mersha and I'm from Hungary.
I'm Liam and I'm also from Hungary and Ireland.
Why do we recognise Liam over here?
I don't know.
You might have been in Austria. Did you win a ticket to the Hungarian Grand Prix?
Maybe I did.
Maybe you did. Thanks to today's video sponsor Head Out. More on them in a bit.
I am Patrick from Hungary.
I'm Elias and I'm from Greece.
Connor from Middlesbrough, great place. What is your most unpopular F1 opinion in 30 seconds? Go.
So my unpopular opinion is that there is too much hype around Daniel Ricciardo at the minute. Although I love him, he's a great driver, really great personality, I do worry that he won't be able to compete with Yuki. He's had 6 months out, not a great 2 years at McLaren, and I just worry for the boy. I quite worry for him.
So it's coming from a place of love. And we've got Matt Amos behind the camera, by the way, who is the biggest Daniel Ricciardo fan, who's not too happy, as you can tell.
I just don't think he's got the bottle after the 2 years at McLaren.
I think he's in his own head a bit.
He's in his own. I think he's in his own head. Like I do love the boy, but I just don't think he's got it. He's only had 6 months out.
When you say not got it, do you mean skill-wise, or do you mean like the pressure of the situation?
I think it's a mixture of two. I think 2 bad years at McLaren has to leave its mark on you.
This is a pivotal time for Ricciardo because that McLaren stint could define his career if this doesn't work for him. If he doesn't get the Red Bull seat, if he stays at AlphaTauri and is about on par with he has to beat Yuki, doesn't he?
Maybe it's I'm being a bit pessimistic because of course, who wouldn't love to see Daniel Ricciardo back in a Red Bull seat? Do you know what I mean? But all the talk of Christian looking after him, beefing him up a bit, getting him back on the sims, is it enough for him to go straight back into a car with Yuki, compete with Yuki, who has been having a great season so far? I think, in my opinion.
What's Ricciardo doing in 2024? Say it in a word or 2 words.
Red Bull.
So Connor clearly wants Daniel to get back into that Red Bull seat, but wanting something and believing it will happen are 2 different things. The scepticism is of course fair given Daniel's history at McLaren, but then just after we recorded this, he out-qualified Tsunoda, and then in the race, a significantly better job, given how little running he's had in the car. Yuki and Checo, to be honest, should be worried.
Well, I think it's bad for Formula One that teams tend to always want to go with more experienced driver, like obviously Ricciardo right now, or also Hülkenberg or whatever. No initiative for teams to go with younger drivers, and I think it's really bad news for the drivers coming to Formula 3, Formula 2 right now and trying to get a new seat. For example, there's some rumors for silly season coming up, and no one is talking about the current F2 champion, Drugovic.
What are these young drivers? Do you have any particular names? Drugovic? With Felipe, it's always difficult because it did take him 3 years to win it, and that's always going to be held against him somewhat.
For example, picking Ricciardo over Lawson. I don't know if we will see a Lawson in Formula 1 next year. I don't think so.
Why specifically do you think it's bad for the sport? Because my counter-argument is that Daniel Ricciardo is one of the most supported drivers in the sport. He brings huge interest and intrigue to the sport, and a lot of fans who might have, Daniel Ricciardo might be the conduit of bringing them into Formula One. So why do you think it's bad for the sport that a driver like him and Hülkenberg are prioritised over these younger names?
Doesn't give the other drivers to build a brand for themselves. Like, for example, Ricciardo he has obviously a huge following, and good for him. The other drivers coming through the ranks right now, there's not really space for them to develop, to grow. Experience is very important in Formula 1, and they can't really get experience. So yeah.
And I think it's harder now because, back in the mid-2000s, you could have unlimited testing, you could test as much as you like, you could do an entire Grand Prix worth of testing before your first race, and now, it's so restricted that you're right, it is hard for these young drivers to get a shot.
And obviously there are drivers like Mick who really, you could say they fail and they really crack under the pressure, I think, with his crashes and the whole thing with Günther. They obviously didn't really get along.
Florian's take is one that was particularly loud, I remember, when Fernando returned to the sport. And I do get it to an extent. I wasn't fundamentally averse to an older driver coming back, but I didn't expect Fernando to be anywhere near the levels he is, clearly. But yet there's so much young talent that's trying to get into F1 and so few seats at the end of the day. Where I sit on it ultimately is that regardless of your age, if you're there on merit, I'm happy. Alonso clearly is, Hülkenberg clearly is, and again, judging off this weekend, Ricciardo probably is as well. Just let 2 more teams in, then we get 24 drivers, then there's more seats, and everybody wins, right? Surely.
Oh, it's a few years old now, but considering the hat I'm wearing, I don't think Albon should have actually replaced Gasly. Gasly should have got a full season before anything should have happened to him.
When you say shouldn't have replaced Gasly, are you thinking primarily from Pierre's point of view, or from Alex's, or from both?
From both. Just a rookie at the time, Albon. It was a bit soon to put him in that good a car. He needed to embed himself in F1. And for Gasly, he didn't get a chance to prove himself. Christian made a snap judgment on a few races, a bit like what's happened this year to another driver in another Red Bull team.
Was it Hungary 2019 was Gasly's last race, I think, for Red Bull?
I think so.
Yeah. What I would say is that I think Alex did a really good job in that when he took over.
Definitely. But also, they both done great jobs in the second half of the season. Gasly done a great job in Toro Rosso at the time. Because he got his first podium?
Yes, in Brazil when him and Lewis had the drag race.
Yeah. So he proved that he was still good enough to be in that Red Bull car, and if Christian had given them that half a season, you don't know what it would be now. Checo might not even be driving that Red Bull.
What do you think would have happened if they'd have given Gasly that full 2019 season and kept Alex in the Toro Rosso? You had Kvyat in the Toro Rosso at the time as well. How do you think that would have played out in 2020?
Might have still played out similar of swapping about, because if Albon still had just as good a second half of the season, they might have still looked at it over the whole course of the season and still swapped them about. We'll never actually know because he never got the chance.
It's true.
But benefit, Albon's at a better team now.
It's kind of gone full circle, isn't it? I think Alex, when he joined Williams, I was excited, but obviously my expectations were, somewhat muffled. But actually, it's paying dividends now, isn't it?
He's proven how good a driver he is, because look at what he's doing with that Williams.
And to be fair, Gasly getting the Alpine shot as well, that is a team that should be, fighting towards the front, and hopefully in time will be. So I think they've got there in the end, but I think Alex was super fortunate for Williams to see enough in him to bring him back in.
Yeah, completely agree, and I'm so happy he did. And yeah, go on Albon.
Come on, Alex! Maybe if Gasly's attitude was a bit different when he was in that Red Bull and he didn't get so frustrated internally, they might have given him the full season and given him time to improve those performances. Like Stephen said, Pierre's best result of that 2019 season was his P2 in Brazil in a Toro Rosso, not the Red Bull. There was clearly more to what happened than just talent. Part of me genuinely thinks that maybe they should have given that seat to Kvyat and then allowed Albon and Gasly just more time to cook in that Toro Rosso and see which one. I'd love to see them two fighting each other, because I genuinely right now consider them on a pretty even level playing field. But then again, the Alex move to replace Pierre was literally the first Tommo F1 video. So without that, who knows where we'd be.
The FIA should probably do more to make it more fair, even for most teams. I think there's a lot of domination with a lot of teams. I think the back markers, they should make it a bit more fair and mix it up.
What do you suggest?
I know that like these like the cost cap and things like that. I just think they're going in the right direction, but I think they should just like literally make it an even playing field.
Are you suggesting like a spec series almost?
Yeah, possibly. Yeah. Possibly.
I mean, the drivers love the idea of a spec series.
People get bored. Like, I'm not bored because I'm an F1 fan, but most people, newbies coming in, they get bored because they want to see. They just think, oh, they're just dominating it. Lewis running away, Max running away with it.
Do you not think the back teams are starting to catch up though?
They are. Yeah, they are. It's getting better, but it needs to happen quicker, I think.
Like Austria, the whole field was split in Q1 by like 8 tenths.
Yeah.
Do you think that next year it will be close? Because I think as long as the field can be within like, if the field could be within like half a second in qualifying, that's enough for me. Because if everyone can win, I think it takes away a bit of the storytelling of these title fights.
Definitely, yeah. I know what you're saying, but I'd like to see that half a second mixed more up as well. So I'd like to see like, I don't know, Albon today is doing awesome already.
As per.
Yeah, man. I'm rooting for Albon. I just want to see them guys who have had a bit of a fall, like he's been knocked down confidence-wise, been demoted pretty much, and then I want to see him in a bad car doing good.
I mean, we're a year and a half into the cost cap. I think it was always going to take at least 2 seasons to get any measurable like effects from it. So I'd like to give it more time. I mean, I think there's maybe merit to having like a spec chassis and then different engines, but I think when you spec the chassis, F1 has always been this. That's part of what makes F1 unique, and I think it would be a shame to lose that.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Yeah, that is. Yeah, it is good.
You want to see the best drivers in equal machinery. I think we all would love to see that.
Because it's just an excuse. Oh yeah, he's got a good car. Because you hear it all the time.
People will always, whether it's Lewis or Vettel or Max or Senna or Schumacher.
I'm a British man. I go for the British guys. Hamilton's my man. I've always supported Hamilton, but you get a lot of bad sort of press about. Oh yeah, but he had a good car. He had a good car. No, he didn't have a good car. He was good.
They all had a good car. You have to have a good car. Like Alonso in that McLaren in 2017. Alonso's one of the greatest of this generation, and he was trundling around at the back because it was a terrible car. So fair play to Chris, right? Because yes, he is a Hamilton and a Mercedes fan, but also he did mention Lewis in terms of this domination. It's just not about Max domination right now. It's the fact that F1 typically is dominated. I mean, in Le Mans you have different chassis and different engines for the cars, but you do have a balance of performance, a BOP. So maybe something like that for F1. But I guess the cost cap is kind of trying to function as a balance of performance in a more indirect way, I guess.
Yuki will be Max's Rosberg. Yuki is really gearing up to be his next teammate. And if you look at all the F1 content from Red Bull, he always wins in those one-to-one fights.
True, you beat him in the monster trucks.
And I saw yesterday on the stage, Yuki had more charisma than Ricciardo on stage. Like, he will get all the fans when he gets there, and I'm a Max fan, but and he will win for one season.
I'm assuming you now also think the rest of this season Yuki will outperform Ricciardo.
More than your watchers are thinking from the last episode, but it will be close, but I think Yuki has a little bit more experience with the car, so that will give him the heads up. And Ricciardo was pretty far behind yesterday. Today it was more close, but we can't tell anything from this. But I think if you put Yuki in the Red Bull, he will have all the spirit to win. And he will be as aggressive as Max was at the start, for sure. And he will get points from fans for that. Not all fans, but from a lot of fans. And he will win at least one championship this way.
Are you concerned about Yuki going to Aston Martin?
Yeah, with the Honda relationship, but if you have the chance to go into a Red Bull, you will take it. Everybody will.
Yeah.
That's a no-brainer.
When do you think Yuki would get that seat?
I think by the end of the year.
End of this year?
End of this year, yeah. Because, or as soon as Perez has secured the second place, then it's okay, then get Yuki in there for practice.
I mean, I always say, I think Yuki's a rough diamond who's getting there. It took him a while. First year was weak. Last year he was right up there with Gasly, especially towards the end of the year. I think this year, De Vries was a difficult unknown. I think this now that Ricciardo's in that seat alongside him, this is going to make and break, I think, both of their careers. I think one of them comes out of it well, the other doesn't.
It's the most exciting thing this year. It's like the start of silly season, and I can't wait for this summer.
Do you think Yuki could do enough to destabilise Max almost?
If he's aggressive, with a big smile on his face like he can do, man,
he can't be mad at you.
Yeah, you can be mad at him, but Max can become aggressive.
They're both got it in their locker.
When he gets pushed off the track, and so, even his teammate, and as soon as it turns toxic, Max will still be on his A game. But it's more a challenge than Perez, who is just like easygoing. We'll see what we get.
I think as well, like I hope that more of the other teams will have closed on Red Bull by this time next year.
Amen.
So then it's not going to be as easy for Max to check. There's going to be other teams, not just them two fighting each other, but other teams fighting them as well.
I think for sure.
Tsunoda, Rosberg and Verstappen, that is a wild shout, Tom, especially from a Verstappen fan as well. I appreciate that. But honestly, if I was a betting man, I wouldn't gamble on Yuki getting that Red Bull seat. I know Helmut Marko's come out and said, you know, it's still on the cards potentially in the future, but I don't know, with Checo and Daniel there, do I believe that Yuki has the ceiling of Checo perhaps? Of Daniel, I think Daniel's demonstrated he's got a really high ceiling, like a top ceiling, and if they can get him back to that, then I think they could get a few more years out of Ricciardo. Yuki's young, which obviously stands in his favour. But then in terms of Rosberg and Verstappen coming in for that 1 year, getting in Max's head, that it would all come down to that, wouldn't it? Because Max has shown, you know, he's a driver who wears his heart on his sleeve. He's not the only one. You know, we saw Brazil last year. He's prepared to do what he feels he needs to do to establish dominance in that team. And if Yuki came along and started, you know, knocking on that door and messing with Max a bit, it's not just about the talent on track for sure. You have to play the game on and off circuit. He does have a bit of a temper, Yuki. Maybe. I mean, that alternative, you know, alternative future, it might happen, where Yuki and Max do a Rosberg Hamilton. That would be, entertainment, mate. Unreal. What is your joint unpopular Formula One opinion? Into the mic, go.
That in 2019 Monza, Hamilton was supposed to win instead of Charles Leclerc, since Hamilton was faster the entire race, and since he got pushed off track, he got damaged, he couldn't continue the pace and go on to win the race.
I don't think Charles Leclerc deserved that win at all. I think
honest Leclerc fan, look at him.
I think Lewis Hamilton was faster all race until he was pushed off track by Leclerc in a dodgy move. So I think it was also very dodgy caused by the FIA not to give him a penalty. Leclerc didn't deserve it. He got away because it's a Tifosi.
This one is really interesting because I did a video a little while ago where I went to these controversial incidents and I swapped the drivers, and I did that, and I took Leclerc's car and replaced it with a Mercedes and took Lewis's car, and it was like, oh, Charles is catching, Charles been pushed off and no penalty for Hamilton, Hamilton wins. There's no way, if that's not at Monza, there's no way Charles holds on to that win.
Yeah.
No chance. That's a slam dunk of penalties you've ever seen in your life.
The Tifosi was there. I think the FIA was too scared of the Tifosi and what they would do to the FIA and stuff like that. They would start rioting if Charles was stolen.
What do you think they should have done? If you were in the steward's room, what are you doing?
Drive through penalty.
Yeah. Give him the penalty.
Drive through?
Yeah.
Disqualify.
What about just asking them to swap positions?
I think that's too light.
Yeah.
Go back and watch that video again where I swapped the cars if you haven't already. In my opinion, it's so clear that would have been a penalty if the circumstances were any different. But don't get me wrong, that podium was a vibe. But come on, Charles, that was naughty. Talking of Monza, courtesy of today's video sponsor, Head Out, I've got one pair of Italian Grand Prix Central Grandstand tickets to give away. Head Out offers reliable tickets with great seats and availability to the best races. Their app's a breeze to use and they offer a range of tickets from general admission to top tier grandstand. If you use my coupon code TOMMO30 at checkout, you will get 30% off tickets to the remaining 3 European races of 2023. That's Spa, Zandvoort and Italy, plus the Mexico and Austin Grand Prix. Links in description, but what about the giveaway tickets? Step 1, drop a lovely juicy grazie ragazzi like on this video, please and thank you. And step 2, tell me in the comments below, who would you take with you to the Temple of Speed and why? You've got 24 hours from this video's release to comment, and I'll be in touch either later this week or early next week via my YouTube community page. Good luck.
In my opinion, these racing rules, like that you can push other people off if they are not ahead at the apex on the outside, I think it is awful. I think it was only really allowed because Verstappen really did it a lot against Hamilton in 2021 and he didn't want to really mess up that battle. But in my opinion, those battles where they leave each other space, like for example in the Alonso-Vettel battle at Japan in 2022. I think those are the really good battles, and I really don't like this pushing off stuff.
You know what? It really does my head in. I couldn't agree more, because you'll see people be like, "Oh, it's hard racing." I'm like, no, hard racing is when they can go lap after lap after lap, fighting each other, close proximity, and when you're just pushing the other driver off, that doesn't happen.
Really kills the battle, as you said. Thinking about it, maybe like those 5 seconds penalties are maybe a bit too harsh for pushing people off sometimes. I mean, of course, it depends on. I think it depends on the track as well, because like in Austria, like it's really bad to push people off.
Depends on the outcome of if you're pushing someone onto gravel versus onto runoff, then it's more obvious to give a penalty if someone's pushed onto gravel. If it's runoff, or you can carry on and then just reverse the positions.
Yes. I think it will be good to look at the tracks as well with those penalties, because I think, for example, like Kota, where there are lots of runoff, I think it is okay to maybe give a little push.
Drivers have always been guilty of pushing each other off track, right? But I do think that consistent stewardship would help. I think so many of these calls are in a bit of a grey area, right? When you're seeing two cars go side by side, this rule where you're not deemed sufficiently alongside unless your front wheels are literally alongside their front wheels, which is a bit mad to me. Ex-racing drivers with real racing experience can look at these incidents and know when there is enough, to partition blame, and also when there's enough to just deem it a racing incident, because we want these drivers racing closely. We want them given space. We want multi-lap battles, all that hard racing nonsense. No, hard racing is when you can go toe-to-toe, lap after lap, not just pushing someone off the track.
Red Bull's obsession with Max has ruined the sport. First of all, they have pretty much destroyed 3 careers, Ricciardo, Gasly and Albon, by putting them on way too much pressure. Then if they weren't focusing the car so much around Max, last year and this year, we would have had a real title fight between Max and Perez.
I would say, right, Red Bull focused the car towards Max because he's the quicker driver.
But he is the quicker driver because I think the car is focused so much around him.
So you think in equal machinery, it would be really close?
Yes, absolutely.
Really? Okay, interesting.
And also, Max uses the regulations. I think the previous guy said that he is way too aggressive and he benefits from it because the regulations allow him to be. As I said, in equal machinery, the 2 drivers would be pretty much equal.
Do you think? Yeah. So if you were in charge at Red Bull,
yes,
what would you have done differently? It's like when Checo came into the team, for example.
We saw that with the new regulations at the start, Checo was doing, I think, very well.
He was.
He got a couple of wins. And then we saw Max complain about the car, and suddenly it shifted towards his style.
Max likes a very on-the-nose car. He likes a lot of oversteer. But wouldn't you say that the reason that gap has grown is because Checo keeps making mistakes?
I think he's under pressure now because he didn't perform that well towards the end of the year. So at the start, the pressure built up, and because he doesn't like the car so much, now he's under pressure, making mistakes. Now he saw Ricciardo come in, and De Vries got sacked, so he could be thinking, now it may be my turn.
Certain drivers in certain cars at certain periods of time, you had Vettel in the 2013 Red Bull, incredible. Yeah. Vettel in the 2020 Ferrari, pretty terrible.
Yeah.
And a great driver, if they're not in the right car for them, it can define, like Checo in that Racing Point was incredible.
Yeah. That Checo in that Racing Point got a win out of nowhere, but he had Stroll as his teammate, so we don't know the true potential. If we see Alonso now, what he does, but I think that even you said with Ricciardo, I think Ricciardo left because he saw what Checo is seeing now, the obsession with Max.
I certainly don't agree with the assertion that Checo in equal machinery would keep up with Max. If that equal machinery was understeery machinery, then I think Checo would be closer to Max. If it was more on the nose equal machinery, then Max would be plenty clear. This approach where you go all in on one driver has paid dividends many a time in the past, whether that's Schumacher at Ferrari, Fernando at Renault as well, Fisichella was nowhere, and obviously Sebastian Vettel in the Red Bull when he was getting priority parts over Mark Webber. If the way Checo liked setting up the car was quicker, I think Red Bull would go down that route. But hyper aggressive on the nose approach that Max likes, that delivers a faster racing car. Cheers everyone who featured in this one. My name's Tommo, thanks again, have a good one. Ta-da.